So here we are for the 13th solve. We are now officially a teenager. After 12 wonderful episodes, we are now on to possibly the most unluckiest, but shouldn't be for us. We did think about skipping it, but we're not going to. So here we are with our collection of sysadmins from around the US, Canada even maybe, if they pop in, and also Germany as well. So today's and where?
And Dominic.
And Dominic. Dominic's in Germany.
So well, yeah, yes. I know. I was just gonna say, yeah, US, Canada, and Dominic.
Yeah. So a diverse set of geeky nerds and SaaSOps professionals. And this complicated topic, and it's probably the most specific topic that we've come across, is function as a service, or FaaS, which was a topic suggestion from one of our own. So over to you, Hiram, to explain what it is.
Yeah, I'm going to rip off of GCP's definition just because I'm a little bit biased, and also I like their explanation, their definition of it. But functions are serverless, event-driven, managed platforms for building and connecting cloud services, not only with the services within like with GCP or AWS, but just, general APIs and things that live within the cloud.
Right. So what's your use of it? I'm assuming, as you brought up the topic, you do use it, or you're evaluating its use as opposed to paying for a tool. Things.
Yeah. What initially brought me into the function world was I wanted to write like Slack bots, or at least I was getting into writing Slack bots, and at the time I didn't know what functions were. I thought that if once I finalized my Slack bot, what I would have to do is then like put it on a dedicated server and then have it live there for the rest of its lifespan. So when I was setting up my bot, I got the code ready and everything, and I had to search online for ways to like get a public address and tie that to my local machine, just so I could then have the webhooks from Slack reach out and send a payload over to the bot that's living on my machine, so that it could then turn around and respond and send that back. And that was I feel like I spent more time trying to set up the public address and then having that redirect to my local machine than just writing the actual code that said hi in the channel. And so that after struggling through all of that, and I got it to work, I then found, or it was suggested to me to look into GCP functions, or GCF, Google Cloud Functions. And I was like, what the hell is all of this? What's all of this? And they're like, yeah, you can just set up a free account for like, I think a year, and you can have a good amount of functions. You don't have to pay for any of that. They'll give you the URL that you need to use, and all you really pretty much have to do is just copy and paste the code that you created into I'm using the wrong term here, but into the thingy mabob inside of the function, and just hit save, and you can go ahead and just test and everything. And I want to say functions are very important because if you're a developer, or if you're just a hobbyist and you're just trying to get into writing bots, you don't want to deal with the overhead, you want to deal with the management, the resource allocation, all of that stuff that you really don't want to do. Like, you just want to write the code, you want to have some fun. Functions are pivotal because they remove the management, they remove the amount of work it takes to get your code deployed.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else ever written a Slack bot besides Hiram and myself? Because I related to that story so hard. The worst part about attempting to write your own Slack bot is trying to figure out how to host it and how to like get it to recognize as a bot and like respond. Like, it's not actually writing the code that does whatever it's doing. So
my biggest issue.
My janky Slack bot just talks to Zapier. So, and then I have a Zapier webhook that talks to another Zapier webhook that talks to like another Zapier webhook, and then like
we tried to get one that was a replacement of ++. We tried to like make our own replacement of ++. So.
Yeah,
Better Cloud's scripting, like in the API section of Better Cloud, those are just Google Cloud Functions. There's just the UI on top of it. So yeah, we use them a bunch.
Our secrets.
There we go.
That's not a secret. I think we're pretty public about that.
Anyone else taking notes? Just me?
I didn't know that. I didn't know that. That's good to know. Thanks.
But that would be part of your question, which was, do we just use functions of a service as opposed to, a fully packaged tool? And I'm guessing, and the example there is Better Cloud would be that fully packaged tool, isn't it? Because somebody else is building the UI and is doing all of those functions in the back end. Whereas, and there's, Better Cloud's just one example. There's others. There's CloudM. There's gPanel. There's a number of those different tools around for G Suite and also for Active Directory. But you could just, build that yourself if you really wanted to, and if you had that experience. Is that correct? Is everybody else?
Well, just to clarify what I was saying, Better Cloud itself isn't a Google Cloud function. If you were to use the API section of Better Cloud and write a script on top of it to do something custom, the code itself is going to a Google Cloud. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And that makes sense to me. Well, and so I guess to get to the core of the issue between like function as a service, like should we do this, should we not? I think, everybody has room for some customization in their organizations, right? A lot of it is just, do we have enough time? And so one of the things that function as a service does is it allows us to have some of that customization if we have the time to write the script without a lot of the overhead. But then some tools like Better Cloud and others, right? They provide a layer that's a little bit deeper than that, but they also integrate with the function as a service thing, right? So if I wanted to write a custom thing, I wouldn't have to write the whole thing from beginning to end to plug it into Better Cloud. I could use what already exists, right? The work that was already done by other people. And I'm all about not reinventing the wheel when I work, so.
Well, and the trend is like to greater levels of abstraction, it seems like, because SaaS itself is abstracting. Like you're taking a thing that you would normally run on a server and try to maintain a server, and like somebody else maintains the server and you're just using the program. And like, yeah. And then like VPCs.
How much does function as a service cost when the 1 year runs out?
It really depends on the provider you're going with, but it's based off execution. So the say it's like a penny per execution.
The people that I know who don't generally tend to spend on a full package tool, they tend to like to do little scripting automations. EDU, schools, like they're the ones who will do this kind of stuff, but don't have the overhead to maintain like the servers and everything themselves.
Yeah, cost is almost always the main driver for opting for a function as a service over maintaining a server, just because it's like an employee versus contractor kind of situation where you don't have any overhead. It just does the thing you want it to do and cost the amount that it actually runs.
Yeah, at some point it's gonna be cheaper to run your server, however.
Or
spin it up into at scale it's going to be cheaper to run it in as a
and schools are always
VM or whatever.
When you talk about IT, because they're part enterprise, but they also have high turnover, and so like you're talking thousands of people all the time, and so you're running in large numbers, but they also have significantly smaller budgets than corporate organizations of the same size, and so the cost optimization there is interesting for them.
I feel like, and this is just my opinion, like for EDU especially, functions would play a great role when you're trying to consider, should I get a server to host this versus a function, depending on what the thing is going to be doing. Because the main pusher for functions is cost and scalability. When it comes to servers, and I've had my good share of dealing with on-prem servers. If you onboard 1,000 employees and all 1,000 need to do something with the server, you're going to have to get another server just to accommodate that. Now with EDU, if you have a Slack bot and only a couple of students or a couple of teachers are interacting with it, it's fine. It's going to scale down. You're only going to pay for that small usage. Now, say the next day you have 1,000 teachers talking or communicating with that and executing that function, it's going to scale up. You don't have to worry about your server crashing or overloading. You don't have to worry about bandwidth or any of that, which is great. And also you're paying for what you're using. You're not paying for the additional electricity that's running for the server, the storage that's not being used. Yeah, exactly. The RAM.
You're not paying for the 3-month summer break, basically. It's just you're not using it.
And you don't have to worry about turning things off or on. Like it's going to do it for you.
As a service could be really useful for like proof of concepts too. Like when you just need to like build a proof of concept and show somebody that like this is an effective thing that I want to try. Like it's a pretty low
I look at it as same way a few years ago people were starting to think cloud first. That's the same way I view it as it should be in the forefront of your mind when you're looking at solutions. Is can this be done just as a function? Do we need a backend to maintain this? And like Dominic's point, if scalability and cost, like if this gets overwhelming with the scale and the cost is increasing, then we can offload that sum to a dedicated instance and still be better off financially. But yeah, it's more of a perception of this is a possibility and I should pursue this if it's possible.
And the free way to use cloud functions, or at least in the Google ecosystem, is just to use an app script. Those are always going to be free. They're never going to charge you for those. So if you do have code and you don't want to go through the trouble of setting up a full Google Cloud project, AppScript is pretty approachable. You can just set one up behind a Google Sheet or something like that.
AppScript is also incredibly powerful as well.
Oh yeah.
With one of my colleagues has been digging in and doing some things in it, and it's the automation you can do and triggered events. You know, it is, nobody's looked at it. Certainly worthwhile investigating and looking some of the demos. Or doesn't Better Cloud have a repository of AppScript that it's published?
We do. Yeah. The cool thing about the cool thing about AppScript is they have a lot of the G Suite authentication built in, and authentication into like docs and sheets and all that stuff. So makes it pretty easy to integrate with those. And the thing that makes it equivalent to a cloud function is you can deploy it as a public web app. So it becomes sort of an endpoint that you can interact with from different sites. I'll link the repository in the chat.
Right, excellent. Has anybody got any good examples of those sort of simple functions of a service that they've set up using AppScript?
It's your topic and you don't even have one?
Well, AppScript, no. I have another example of a function that I've written that it's really alleviated an area of need that my teams, and I feel like everyone here has had to deal with or still deals with, which is account activations for Okta, and getting those done the day of the person being started. But for AppScripts, no, I don't have any examples. So unfortunately, that's the one unconquered field.
Hiram, tell us more. Tell me more.
Tell you more. So in Okta, you have multiple stages for accounts. You know, you have your activated, you have your deactivated, but you also have your staged accounts. The example that we've done here is we used to have to activate the Okta account at a certain time central for all of our US accounts, but then we also have employees that are in the UK, in Asia, and
somebody would have to like wait up in the middle of the night to activate accounts.
We'd have to wake up at like 8 a.m. local to that person, but not for us. So like if someone's starting in London, we're waking up, or I'm waking up at 3 a.m. to just hit activate. Which got kind of ridiculous. If it's someone being hired in India, that's on the half hour, so you have to wake up on the half hour in the middle of the night just to click that one button. And so what we did is we created a script that just takes in all of our stage accounts. We have attributes for time zones and the start locations, and we just convert the time local to us to whatever their time zone is for their location. And if that's 8 o'clock, then it runs it does an API call to Okta to activate that specific account. And so now we don't have to wake up at any time to click that button. That's a completely hands-off process now. The next thing is, well, we don't want to put this on a server because we don't have that many new hires where we need to have this thing have a run dedicated all the time and to consume resources all the time. So we're putting that in a Lambda function that just triggers every hour, and it looks or every half hour, and it looks to see, okay, is anyone starting now? No. Is anyone starting now? No. Is anyone starting now? Yes. 1, activate. And it just keeps on going. And I feel like that is a good example of why functions are so beneficial, is they don't eat as many resources. Now, if we have, and we do have large groups of interns that do start every quarter or so, and those are instances where we're gonna need to make sure we can handle like 60 plus people starting on one morning at the same time. And we have peace of mind knowing that our Lambda function will scale up at whenever that happens. So we don't have to worry about logging into a server to make sure, hey, is this running fine? Or check on the utilization. On that server, because it can consume a lot. Especially if you have other things running on that server along with that script, which is a common practice if you don't have that much monetary resources to dedicate to having tons and tons of servers spun up all the time. So if you can only afford to have one server and you have to do a lot of things on that, you have to make sure you're checking on the resources that are being consumed across all of the applications and all of the scripts and programs that are running on that. So that way, if you do have 60 new hires starting or students starting.
That's the thing too, is like if you take the server idea, when you first start out with functions, like so far, right, you might have one function and it might run 30 or 60 times in one go. And then, but like, let's say like later you decide you want to add another function, and then you just stick it on the same server. And then like, before you know it, you're looking at overloading your server, upping the, the bandwidth processing power of it.
Yeah, and you have.
So I feel like functions does really serve a good niche there.
Yeah, I was going to say you also have problems with compatibility of things if they're all running on the same server, like needing different versions of PHP or whatever programming language it's on. I remember back in the day we would have a developer would develop something on their laptop, in a virtual machine, and then say, we're going to deploy it to X server, and then they would try and deploy it and it's not working because we've only got PHP whatever on the server, but they had something different on their laptop. This was, back in the day when you used to have, servers, and you'd have to always be patching the OS, patching the application, worrying about, all of that. There's, a lot of the videos have said when you look at, the reason to do function as a service, you don't have to spend, I think it's the AWS, is it Lambda? The Lam A or Lam DA, whatever it is.
Lambda, yeah.
I think I watched their video and it was like, why have all the hassle of, managing your operating systems and, upgrading your database. And, if you do upgrade your database, you've got to have a backup of that database, and you've got to have, your staging, your testing. So yeah, function as a service, is in this day and age, nobody wants, who wants to be installing servers and upgrading operating systems?
No, just no.
That's the entanglements, like you're saying with patching, like of course, if you have an instance that's going to run one piece of code every 30 minutes, that's a terribly inefficient idea. So you would load it up to capacity as you could to make it economical. And if you have 30 different things running on one instance and one of them has an issue, You have to figure it
well,
out
and then the
test and then try and figure out what the fix is and then schedule it and put it in production. Meanwhile, the thing that you want to happen is not happening. Whereas with the Lambda script, it's a one-off. You troubleshoot it, update the code. If it works, you're good. Like
the opposite of the like multiple things on a server problem is one server for everything, which is like a whole other kind of problem, right? Because then when you're patching stuff, like or auditing even, like you have to do all of them. And like, so for instance, like for our Okta, it's delegated authentication with LDAP, and we actually have 2 LDAP servers that are independent and don't have anything else on them. They have no other use, and they're actually like segmented away from the network because we literally, that's the only thing they're used for. But like, I was like, when we installed them, I was like, this is just one thing. Like all it's doing is receiving an LDAP query from Okta and sending it over to Jump Cloud. Like that's all it's doing, and like those connections back and forth. And like, I don't know. I feel like something like function as a service, right?
Or infrastructure as a service, yeah.
Yeah, it like is a way to manage similar things where you're just making calls to things, right? That's all APIs really are. We're just sending information and asking for information. That's all we're doing. Yeah. And so like, because the maintenance of those servers is frustrating.
And I feel like this is it should be a big topic because, data drives businesses, really. The more data that you can have and consume and process, the better you can make business decisions. And with functions, instead of having one system send a webhook over to another system and having to rely on that other system and how it processes the data, how it takes it, and maybe excludes some data that that the other system is trying to send over. With functions, you can really not worry about cost, not worry about scale, just take in the data, the pure data that's coming through, and then figure out on your own, what do you want to do with that data? How do you want to define where it's going, what you're going to do with that? And I feel like functions, they're really helpful in that area. And while you're jumping into the function pool, you can also explore other areas within that platform. Like GCP has other great APIs that if you're already doing functions with or using App Engine 4, there's tons of other stuff you can do with it too. Like you have the natural language API that you can use, so you can process, if it's like a chat bot, process that language that's coming to you better, especially if it's like a support bot. Or you have the Dialogflow API, which will take in that, and it's kind of like a like machine learning API kind of, where depending on how much it's being talked to, the more it can learn and the better it can respond back to the people that are communicating with it. So if you wanted to create a chatbot that really sounds natural and like it's like they're really talking to a person in IT, not like another bot that has prescribed responses, you can really take advantage of that. And if you're already using functions for the platform, you can really integrate easier with the other offerings that are offered alongside that, versus having a server that's on-prem communicating with those APIs. You're less likely to deal with the gateways that you have to like authenticate with just to get to that API, because your function is already within the system. You don't have to authenticate with those other APIs. You've gone past that gateway.
Yeah. It's interesting you talk about the humanization of bots. I was thinking of Silicon Valley and wondering if you were going to make a bot of yourself to answer Slack-based IT questions.
I have attempted to twice so far, but with every version, it gets better and better. In one workspace, I had to specifically like have my name in parentheses, not a bot. That way, folks know they're talking to me and not the other me. That's not me.
So if you do make this as a bot, please make it cross-platform. I would love. We don't use Slack, but I would love to add it to Google Chat. So yeah, that would be brilliant.
Yeah, that's my dream, is to have Hirams everywhere.
Well, yeah, obviously you need them so that you don't have to get up at 3:30 in the morning to do something in India. It is always strange that India is at a half an hour time zone period. So.
Yeah, that threw me off while trying to figure that out.
Or Australia, 4 hours.
Is it? Oh, well,
yeah.
I forgot about that. Yeah.
always turn up 15 minutes late.
Time is a construct. Just that's the take back from this meeting.
UTC.
No.
Yes.
Just use UTC.
Yes.
Time is a construct, and there's more than one Hiram.
Yes. Yeah.
You have to calculate so much. It's hard, I know, American.
So I guess I have a question for maybe the viewers, maybe some of us in this room, hypothetically, maybe just for a friend. If we wanted to start using functions or look into how we could use functions, and we're not familiar with GCP, and we're not familiar with a lot of the language that they use, do you know any resources? Like, how did you get started with this? You said somebody recommended it to you, but I assume you researched somewhere.
Yeah, I think my senior system engineer at the time was like, "Hey, why are you doing all this like painful stuff? Why don't you just like do this instead?" And I did do a lot of research after that just to understand how does it work, how do I get access to it. There are some steps you have to do within that. Like I'll use GCP as the example. That's what I'm more familiar with. You have to create an application, or you have to create a project. Within that project, you then have to give that project resources, and the resources are like Google Cloud Functions or Firebase, or like shoot, I want to use the directory API, so I'm gonna add that
you have to turn on the different products.
Yes.
That it's gonna be allowed to use. Yeah.
And that's something that I had to learn through trial and error and research, mix of both.
Is Google's documentation pretty good on that? Sometimes that stuff is dense.
Yeah, Google's documentation is good. They offer a lot of resources when it comes to project creation, and there's a good amount on functions. But there's two types of functions. There's GCF, and then I can't remember the name of the other one. I think it's Firebase functions. Yeah, and that one I think they're leaning more towards. Thank you. Yeah, I think they're leaning more towards that.
Yeah.
Just been trying to do a quick Google on Quick Labs and Coursera for.
It looks like Firebase has functions too. So do they have 3?
So
he said Firebase, I think.
Yeah.
Cloud Functions for Firebase is what.
So Google Cloud Functions, Quick Labs, and Firebase.
No, I think it's supposed to be.
Because Quick Labs also comes up when you search.
No, Quick Labs is a training tool. That's just where you learn about this. It's a good way to.
So Quick Labs is a resource to learn more about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
They walk you through. It's not a product for doing that, but it's a product to learn about it.
Okay.
I think Quick Labs is a good resource.
I think a lot of the words are used, like if you search for function as a service on Coursera, it just gives you like Cloud 101 and its introduction to a lot of other things, because I think it's part of a larger ecosystem, isn't it, as opposed to something different.
Yeah, if you're not familiar with it and you want to be, and you don't really have a solution you're trying to solve offhand, just like Brian said, create a chatbot. You could just get through the process of creating the project, authorizing it, creating roles, all that kind of stuff, and like getting it to work. Because then if you want to do something later on and you could make it a function, you've skipped all the stumbling blocks that people could get stuck at, where it's like, well, I don't want to do all this stuff just to do this little thing. Now, if you realize it's pretty easy and quick and you've done it once or twice, like everything else, now it's in your head.
The first time.
And as a bonus, if you follow the thing and make this Google chatbot in their tutorial, you'll always know the price of Bitcoin.
Oh.
So, that's like what the chatbot does in the tutorial. Like you ask it what the price of Bitcoin. Yeah.
Good to know the price.
You can adjust it to dollars if you want, or dollars or pounds, whatever. if it's more important.
The alternative to FaaS was PaaS, platform as a service, in the aspect that there are platforms out there that allow you to quickly deploy your script or your application. And the reason why FaaS is a little bit more popular than the PaaS alternatives, and that can become quickly a tongue twister. Wow, is that with PaaS, you can create more complex applications that you can then deploy. But with FaaS, it's just quicker to deploy and it's more scalable and
yeah. So the
it's
more complex,
more cost effective.
Yeah, the more complex of the task, the more you get more into like maybe we need platform as a service instead of function as a service.
Yeah, I noticed that the biggest struggle when working in a PaaS world with your application is if your company or if you decide to switch over to a different PaaS, you're kind of stuck because you have to rewrite your application to work within that other environment. And if you are taking advantage of features in that one PaaS, like you're adding in all these different add-ins and stuff in that one PaaS, it might not be offered in the other PaaS. But within FaaS, it's like
usually you're writing in a particular language, and so
yeah. So like if you're writing in Python, GCF supports Python in both GCF and Firebase functions, and then like if you wanted to go over to like AWS Lambda, it supports Python. Just copy paste. Yep. You might have to do a little bit of tweaking, but just copy paste it over. If you want to use Azure, go ahead. it's all fine across the board. There might be some tweaking just to get it acclimated to the new environment, but it's pretty much across the board easy to move and migrate across.
Right. And that makes sense.
Next step is
we know
Kubernetes.
That like if you've ever worked with any developer ever, like you know that like moving code from one developer to another, like when they don't have the same standard is, and that's kind of what you're doing sometimes when you're moving to these platforms. Like you're moving.
Yeah, you're trying to fit into one box.
One community set of standards to a different community set of standards, and so.
Yeah.
The things that plug in are different and they work differently, and it's hard to. It's a lot of work.
Anyone ever worked with Cloud Tasks from Google?
No, but I wish I did. From the name, I think I understand what it does, and I'm looking back and just like, I wish I knew about it.
Yeah, Cloud Task is also serverless Cloud Functions type of product where you can just give it a task and say do it. But I have never worked with it. But yeah.
It's sort of like a Postman kind of thing.
I don't know about Postman. I'm not a developer.
I have a good example for tasks actually.
Oh, perfect.
Because I just looked at it and then one word came up and I'm like, yep, I know what this is for, and yep, I really wish I knew about this 2 years ago. So when I was making my first Slack bots on GCP, I was being a numbskull because like if you go into Slack, Slack has tons of documentation on how to make a Slack bot. Majority of it, if not all of it, is how to do it in Lambda, AWS Lambda, not how to do it in GCP functions for a reason. And so I was just like, I'm going to be the first person to do it in GCP, or at least do it and then document it, and then everyone can try to do it themselves. And that took a year of development just to end up with, this is terrible. Only because the issue is when you make a Slack bot, the first, when the bot or the app sends a verification payload over to your application just to verify, is this like a legit thing? What Slack is expecting back is that you send a special key that's in the payload back to it. And that's how it verifies.
It's a lot of work to find that key too.
It's not that bad, but the first time it did take me a while, to be honest. But the issue is after your bot's verified and everything, every time Slack sends a webhook to your application, it expects a response within 3 seconds. And if it doesn't get that response within 3 seconds, it's going to send another, the same payload over to your application again. And it will continuously do that for I don't know how long, but my first bot responded to my test Slack channel about 1,000 times. So 1,000 spam messages, the same thing, just because it wasn't responding to Slack fast enough. It took maybe 5 seconds to respond. And what would have solved that is Cloud Tasks. Cloud Tasks is kind of it's an asynchronous tool that you can think of as like a queue. So when your application gets that, hey, did you get my message from Slack? Your application can then immediately respond back saying, yeah, I got it, and then take the actual message that Slack sent and then put it in this queue. And then you have other functions that look at that queue and start taking whatever is sent to it, and then it can take its time processing. If it needs 10 seconds to like take that, then
you're
reach out to another
responding back
API.
to Slack in time.
Yeah.
But your function is still like it puts it in a queue for your function to run it.
Yeah.
But there's a separate tool that like just he's literally just
yeah, and that's exactly what Cloud Tasks is it lets you do multiple tasks if you need to take time on that, but you also need to set a response immediately back to whoever is requesting it. And that's just one example of what you do with it. I didn't know that this example existed, so I went the elaborate way of spinning up a separate function. So when the first one, it was like a Slack door got hit by Slack, it will respond and then take the message and then forward that over
to the second function.
Yeah, to a second function with like an encryption key on it. And then the second one would verify that this came from the first function using that key, and then respond back to Slack with the actual message, with whatever it was asking for. And that took a year to figure out, how do I respond to Slack properly with that key? And then also, 3-second rule, cool, how do I figure that out? And then other stuff.
Well, and I remember like a lot of people won't encounter that 3-second rule if you write a fairly basic function from the get-go, except usually what happens is like your function works most of the time, like your Slack bot works most of the time, but then every now and then you get like a timeout error. You get just like a something doesn't happen. and then it works fine. Like if you just like wait a couple minutes and then try it again, like it works fine. And so that's what we saw with ours, was that most of the time it was perfectly fine, but then sometimes it would just take a little too long. And what was happening on the back end is that. And so we never solved it. So actually this meeting has been very helpful for me.
I think one of the benefits of a function over a cloud server like Google App Engine is, I don't think, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think I've ever seen functions like Lambda or GCF go down. But then we have the example of, I believe it was Google App Engine had an outage the other day. So
I'm function as a service.
Oh, I'm sorry, could you say that again?
I said, does that affect function as a service when the App Engine goes down?
No. So App Engine went down.
The App Engine affects AppScript though, doesn't it?
Oh, I don't know. Anyone?
I think AppScript is based on App Engine somewhat, yeah.
Yeah, App Engine takes down some stuff when it goes down.
Yeah. The only
reason
why
depends on the issue. Yeah, bringing it down.
Yeah. Or at least what it does is I think it actually just delays things. Like it all gets queued up and then just doesn't go anywhere.
Yeah. We got an email from a vendor the other day, and it was just an apology of like, sorry, our services stopped running. Google App Engine was having some issues, and I was like, I can use this. I can use this as an
Better
example
Cloud knows
later on.
that very well.
Yes.
Apologizing for someone else's infrastructure downtime is our specialty.
It's always great. Yeah.
It's a lot easier than apologizing for something you had done personally. So.
Well, these cloud functions are really just running on someone's computer, so
yeah.
Plausible deniability. Somebody else's problem. Wasn't us. It was them.
Well, the cloud
Email
functions.
down. I'm so sorry.
The cloud functions are like just an abstraction of App Engine. The App Engine is just like an abstraction of VPC, and the VPC is just an abstraction of like actual servers sitting in a room. So it's all cascaded.
I was going to say this is all on somebody's computer, but it's at this point it's usually Google's, Microsoft's, or Amazon's computer.
Yes.
Usually
until they outsource
Usually
it.
Amazon.
Everyone else.
Now we can use at home, like SETI at home used to be, and just like use people's machines at home, and it's like, here, you're gonna do a thing for us.
Yeah, well, that cloud compute. That's what cloud, I guess, computing was back in the day when everybody had the SETI screensaver. That was distributed, cloud computing, trying to work out which aliens were gonna come and assimilate to space. So,
holding,
still waiting for them to arrive. So. Maybe that's what 2021 will give us. Obviously, 2020 has given us
aliens,
COVID-19, and a lot of other problems. Maybe 2021.
Why would you wish that on us?
Because I just wanted something new.
It can only go up.
You're like, I just want something unusual. Coronavirus is boring.
Maybe if they can bring the vaccine, I welcome them.
There you go.
They heard about it, yeah.
Maybe I've just been binge watching too much Star Trek Next Generation on one of the strange broadcast channels that I can get.
Too optimistic, yeah.
Yeah. Well, this has been a great long discussion about functions as a service platform and all the other bits.
I think this is probably our most dense technical one yet.
Yes. Dense
Sorry.
as in
That's okay.
Subject. Yeah. The other stuff has normally been lighter, fluffier. This is very specific, a little bit. This has been the more technical, more nerdy. So in the last few minutes, I did, as we have had a big announcement this week from Google, and them introducing a new integrated workspace in Gmail that intelligently brings together the people, content, tasks that you need to make the most of for your time at work. I just wanted to get a round robin thought of what people think of this. So let me just work out how I can share my screen by clicking the right button. And
a pretty slick description of something that's going to screw everybody up that's on Slack, essentially.
Yes.
Cause a ton of confusion.
So here we go. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, let me click. If I go full screen, will it do full screen?
Yes.
No, even better.
That's how it works with computers.
Mark.
I was going to say, is the sound useful?
Can you hear it, Sam?
I hear the sound, but
All right.
it's like going in and out, up and down.
Just music.
It's just a jingle.
Yeah. The rooms that they're showing, those are the chat rooms and Hangouts, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. And then there's a separate chat section for DMs?
Yes. The current chat app is already in those two sections, DMs and chat rooms.
Yeah.
So are tasks finally going to be able to be shared with other coworkers and teams?
I don't think.
That's how it looks like. That's what they promised, but that doesn't mean that it's gonna be good. I'm not sure.
Or it might be a while.
That's true.
I was gonna say that's like a project management wet dream.
Yeah.
Have the whole shebang right there, plus tasks you can give to people.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. We recently got a request for like a third-party integration that does something similar to that because they want that. So I'm hoping, even if it's just like
They can wait a minute.
yeah, just like, hey, just wait
Give
for
it a
this.
month.
This is free.
So my first thought is, if Google wants to, they could integrate Slack like that
Hi,
too.
my name is Ashley Malone, and I'm
Hi, Ashley.
Hello, Ashley.
That was auto start or auto play.
Autoplay.
Yeah, I think it's probably their target to kill Slack. If they,
I mean, yeah, but
Don't say it like this. Otherwise, they're gonna get slapped in a European court by Slack.
Well,
again.
right, not legally or technically, but yeah, they're not going to integrate anything else into this, I would imagine.
Nah.
well, and so, but that would be like, so now we have Zoom in place of Hangouts in Calendar. Like you can make it so that like Zoom is the add video conferencing drop down. Like it's not, you don't just have to use the Chrome extension anymore. And so they've done things before where it seemed like they were only going to ever support their native application. And so
you can install Slack into
I
Gmail
can't
as
see
well.
it happening. And like, yeah, you can install a Slack add-on to Gmail. So like it exists, but it's mostly for sending emails to Slack.
Yeah, at the moment, but you know, no one knows where this is going to go. This could go into more of a, hey, just replace
They definitely won't
Slack
ever
if you
create Teams.
And well, and I mean, they could be doing this because of this is from the push to work from home. They see suddenly they have this giant market that they have an opportunity to steal. Like the Slack thing in Calendar is from before work from home. That's when they were like, we'll play nicely with everything here. And now they can just be like, nah, screw you. This is the default now. And like, we're going to claim all this market share if we can.
And that's the way Microsoft's driving it with Teams.
Right, yes. There's certainly a consolidation of platforms or having everything in one place. So my thoughts about seeing that video, it either looks revolutionary or it looks like chaos.
Cumbersome, yeah.
Because
well, I was going to say, if you use those apps, it sounds cool.
Yes, yeah.
But like, if you don't, it's noise.
That's going to be their target audience. But like, I would have all of those 4 separate apps in 4 separate tabs across, 2 separate windows. To have all of those things in one window or one app, Gmail, and jumping across different tabs, is almost going to be
I'm
like.
I'm just going to have 4 Gmail tabs open. Colin.
Pardon?
I'm just going to have 4 Gmail tabs open.
Right.
So I have everything in everyone.
For each one. I do think it is clever to integrate tasks into it and being into sort of the email threads to changing into a chat and and scheduling a meeting and assigning things within a chat, a thread to somebody as a task and getting them completed and reviewing documents. I think that is a workflow because there are other programs that allow you to do that, and people might be paying for. So it's certainly encroaching into some people.
Asana Slack integration is amazing. There's a lot of those integration stuff, turning a thread into a task and adding comments from a thread to a task that is already existing. Asana and Slack work very well together, and that's
I think the majority of users would love to have this all in the same place. People tend to like that. I don't like it at all. I can't focus, but people love Outlook, and I hate it. So.
Yeah.
I hate switching between Slack and email. And like the result is that I don't check my email a lot. And so like sometimes that's really problematic, especially like Google support tickets and things like that are only ever going to be followed up on over email and stuff. And then so like I've looked for ways to reduce the amount of information the amount of important information I have coming into email at all. But like, what if they were just in the same tab?
Right.
They're gonna have a problem though with like the kind of best in breed functionality, because there's a reason people use Slack and that people jump to Zoom, and now Google's trying to play catch up. So they're gonna force it on you. That's my fear. Is they're not gonna give you any sort of ability to, remove that from the UI.
Right. Even though, like, as IT admins, we know that there are a lot of limitations.
Yeah. And I'm not about to go rewrite 150 bots for Hangouts chat.
You can, so you can turn off chat in Gmail. You cannot turn off Meet in Gmail, even though it wasn't a launch feature. You can't do that as an admin, but end users can.
This is gonna be a
There
nightmare.
should be admin functions, admin control, or at least API control over it. So we can write our own app to do that on every new hire. But I expect that you still be able to use Meet or Gmail as it's used to be, as it's now. And I don't expect them to force it to you. It's just gonna be the default.
I genuinely think the right move for them, and like this would reinforce like how much I appreciate Google as a leader in the field, if they decided to allow other chat apps to integrate that way. Like obviously that's a two-way street, because like Slack needs to want to integrate them, and like, you know, Teams needs to want to.
I believe that. So Slack doesn't have their own. That wouldn't have their own integration right now if they wouldn't want to have that, and they wouldn't work as closely.
And
with
so
Google.
and I know that they won't at the beginning, but like I think that would be the right move for Google, is to say like, this is the way of the future, but we're not going to make you use our versions of the tools if
the development side of that
is willing
and
to
support side
integrate.
of that is just a nightmare to load someone else's platform to sideload it into your app and support it. Be really surprised.
With progressive web apps, it shouldn't be that hard.
Right. That's what the new chat is. The standalone app is a progressive web app, right?
I'm thinking
that's part of what makes all of this possible, right?
Why? I don't understand why they released that update just to then say, "Oh no, we're going to keep it all in one pane." Why release a new chat?
I think because it's different teams. I'm assuming this is the Gmail team, and then of course there's the Meet chat team, you know, and maybe there has been such aligned product, you know, vision and direction. Even though they do have a new VP of G Suite, who was doing some of the webinars this week. So we've come to the top of the hour. I just wanted to end on that, to hear everybody's round robin thoughts. Be interesting to see when it does get enabled on our domains and we've been able to kick the tires and see if it does change the way, you know, we collaborate with our colleagues, but also members of our company collaborate with a larger group of people. So thank you very much.
Can I throw one thing in real quick?
Yes, sure.
As the resident non-G Suite person, I would love to see this in Teams and Outlook like combined. But you know, so that's one more thing that why can't
I'm sure if Microsoft wasn't already thinking about it, I'm sure they're considering it now. Because
well, and I'm also really curious about what's going to happen with the lawsuit, you know, with Slack against Microsoft. I don't know if you guys have heard that, but they filed an antitrust lawsuit in the EU about including Teams as part of the just overall package without increasing the cost. So that might have some play in all of this.
That is a discussion for another time. I'm just going to stop the recording here.